So this is week 5, Adobe Illustrator certification test class. And if more people come, I'll stop and tell them which one and which files to take. But basically what we're doing today, we're working with type and typography. Huge section in the test. Why? Because Adobe Illustrator is really a software that geared for logos and icons and branding, and really you're going to use a lot of type. If the type is not the right one, or you don't choose the correct one, it's not readable. If it's not readable, your production is not good. Of course, in the test, you are going to be limited for the kind of fonts that you're going to use, typefaces. Why? Because they cannot put a whole assortment of typefaces and then everything is going to be compatible. So we have like 5-6 typefaces, and they're going to tell you which one to use. In real life, nobody is going to tell you which one to use. You are the one who's going to be the designer and decide which kind of typefaces you're going to use, unless you're working for a company and they have some kind of branding, and they're going to tell you, our company works with X, Y, and Z typefaces, and you have to follow that. Does that make sense? So we're going to go in and look at essence of type in general. So let's go to File and Open. And then I have in week 5, I have a whole folder that says Working with Type. And then over here you have Create a 3-fold brochure, logo creation, sample poster, text to place, type that we're going to look in, and something called typography. Double click on typography. This is really not an Adobe Illustrator file. This is just a PDF that you also have it in the soft skill. It's the same PDF. And all what I'm going to do, I'm going to click and just show it to you. So we're going to go type and all. Hi. What we're going to do today, we're looking at type. And just right now, we're not even doing anything. We're just looking at type. So what do we have in front of us here? And it says, this is sans serif typeface. This is serif typeface. This is slab serif typeface. It's the way the design and the style of the typeface that you have. And you see the other one said this is a script typeface, black letter, monospace, handwriting, and decorative. More or less, this is the most popular ones. The most popular ones really are sans serif, serif, and script. So you might get a question that they're going to ask you is which one is serif, which one is sans serif, which one is slab serif, which one is script type, and so on. In order for you to kind of remember it, I'm going to show you a place that's going to be really, really easy to start looking into it. When do you use stuff like that? A lot of time, some people are going to say, I would like to have the title in sans serif and the main body copy with serif. That's going to be a decision. I'm not teaching you here the whole idea of typography, but just an idea is script, it's not really a very readable typeface. So a lot of time it's done for titles. Maybe if you do like a wedding invitation and you have some kind of fancy script looking thing, of course a lot of people are using it. Can you imagine to read an entire book with script? Forget about it. That's not going to be really readable. So I'm going to go and look at the other document. And this is a very important document. And why is this one so important? Because you can see here, it tells you understanding typography concept. So if I was I can actually go in and double click on it. So if I get out of Illustrator and just go back to my week 5 and working with type, and going again to the typography area and double click on typography concepts, you will see a PDF. Again, it is also in the soft skin. Oh, don't update it for me now. I don't want an update. Okay, so look what I have over here. This is just concept about typography. So if I'm going to go to a full screen mode just to talk to you a little bit about it, really what they have here, they're really talking to you about understanding typography concept. These guys explain concept use in typography including serifs, font sizing, leading, kerning, tracking, and baseline shift. You're going to get a lot of questions and they're going to tell you change the leading, change the kerning, change the tracking, or change whatever you have. You need to go in and kind of understand that. And you don't have to open it if you just come in. You can just watch that over here. Oh my. Can't verify my subscription, really. Okay, so what I have over here is serif and sans serif that you have, and you're gonna tell you this is a serif font, and look what you have. I call it the font that has tiny little legs next to it. It always has kind of extra stuff. The serif font next to it is basically Arial in this case, and it is kind of more rounded. So a lot of famous one is Optima and Helvetica. Oh, come on. And then I'm going to go back here, and you see when designing heading, and you choose either serif or sans serif font families. For body text, consider the following. Serif font can be easier to read in print. Sans serif font can be easier to read online. So kind of like two different things. And it's showing you kind of like the sizes and everything, if it's lowercase or if it is uppercase. Then you have something about font sizing. So when you see here about font sizing, it's going to tell you that a certain size for a certain font, it's not the same size as of the other font. So basically you want it to be really, really readable, but if it's tiny, sometimes you're not going to see actually the font itself. And then you have all the way down here, this is about leading. What is leading in typography? Is the space between the sentences. So it basically is leading. It's based on they used to use lead to separate lines of typeface before they did a digital thing that you have. So you can see here that's the leading. And then over here, this is something we're going to play with, and look at that. This is a very wide leading, and this is a very tight leading. When it's very tight, sometimes it's not very readable. When it's very wide, also sometimes it's not so beautiful. So you have to find kind of a soft spot between them, a sweet spot, to see which kind of leading you're going to use. And then I'm going to go back here. I don't know what's going on with this. And then I'm going to go back to tracking. And what is it tracking? Tracking is the space between the entire space of the sentence. So what you see here is normal text, positive tracking, negative tracking. On top of that, you also have kerning. Kerning is the space between a pair of characters. So a lot of time they're going to ask you to change the tracking or the kerning. More than that, shows up in every test that you have. They will ask you what is tracking, what is leading, what is kerning. And you kind of have to remember, leading is the space between the sentences, tracking is the space within an entire sentence, and kerning in the space between a pair of characters. And then baseline shift is basically the type is sitting on a certain area, and then it goes all the way up or all the way down below the baseline shift. If you're going to need later to do some more stuff, I do have another, I do over here in my, let me just go back and quit Acrobat, I don't know why. I do have a typography presentation over there, so you can look at it in your spare time. It says Introduction to Typography Design, It is not such a beautiful presentation, because see, typography plays an important role in how audience perceive your document and its information. Good design is about capturing your audience interest, helping your audience to gather information. Typography creates relationship between different types of information and both organize in information and keeping it interesting. So what are they going to ask you? See legibility, similar alignment, uniformity, consistency, and contrast. Then you have something about font family, font size, letter, word, line spacing, and alignment. And over here again, you're going to see serif and sans serif, and it gives you kind of like the idea how it looks. So you're going to start looking at everything and then talking about what is the audience going to look, if it's left aligned, justified, it is inside an area, and you can see over here different personality of font faces that you're going to have. And then typography design is the art of designing with type, principle and goals or techniques for working with text. So you can see here you have some kind the idea of everything that looks with typography. You want to go in and look at it and work with that before the test. They're going to ask you definitely questions about that. So now we're going to open one file and we're going to do later a different one, but I'm just going to go through just to show you the sample, and then we're going to dive into looking at all kind of text that we have, and we're going to try to do like a three-fold brochure. And the reason we're going to do it because I'm going to show you how to package the stuff that you have. So yes.
What's the difference between
kerning and kerning is the space between a pair of characters. So if you have a sentence that, let's say, I love Illustrator, and then the T and the O are not in a good space, so you can put your type and then make space between the T and the O, that's kerning. But if the entire Illustrator has to be wider, that's tracking. It's the space for the entire block of text. So let's go into File and Open. First, we're just going to look at the preview, and then we're going to build the same thing. Click on Type AI. And then you're going to see over here, and actually it's kind of a presentation. I even can go and make it as a presentation. How would you make that as a presentation? If you go to your toolbar and all the way down, you can go back here and see presentation mode. I'm going to take that and make it into a presentation. So I'm going to go to the beginning. So look at that. What you have over here is point type and area type. This difference in Illustrator. Then you have something called create outline. So you take the type that you have and make it into an object. Big thing in the test as well. This is type on a path. They're going to ask you to do that for sure. This is path around a circle, around a path. This is type in an area. This is touch type. Sometimes they want you to do stuff with it. And it's another one around a circle. And this is just creating some fun stuff for ourselves with type. And this is what you can do with Illustrator. So the first thing we are going to do, we don't need this one at all. We're going to do File and New. We're going to open 8.5 by 11. We can call it text. And then we're going to make maybe like, for now, let's make 8 artboards. Maybe we're not going to need the 8 artboards. We're going to make 8 artboards. And then we're going to click Create. So the default of 8 artboards always going to go and look like this. That's a default. So just as a review, if you get a question in the test to rearrange these artboards, how would you do that? You guys remember? You need to go to 2 places, either to the artboard tool, or you're going to go to your properties And all the way down, you're going to go in and say edit artboards. And all the way down, rearrange all. And now you can rearrange it and make even a space between it to 1 inch. They might ask you some time to do that. We just open a file with 8 artboards.
Okay.
So that could be a question. And then you have to remember how to rearrange your artboards. But what are we going to do? Since artboards and layers do not talk, remember? We're going to do a layer and artboard, and lock it so it's going to be a good demo. I'm going to go to the first artboard. I want to name that. I'm going to click on the artboard tool, and this is the artboard, and then I'm going to call it point type. And then I'm going to go to the layers panel, and I'm going to double click on layer 1, and I'm going to call it point type. So we know we're dealing with point type right now. I'm going to go back and zoom in just to this artboard. I don't want to see the others, I'm just seeing this artboard. What we're going to look at the first thing, you want to look at the type tool and all the elements that you have, and you want to look at character panel, paragraph panel, character style, and paragraph style as well. So where do you find all these guys? The character panel, you can find it inside your properties panel. Also the paragraph panel. The paragraph style and the character style, you can take them from window and go in and bring paragraph style and character style. But first let's look at the type. Click in and look what you see here with type. You have type, the type tool. You have area type tool. You have type on a path tool. Vertical type tool. Vertical type area type tool. Vertical type on a path tool, and touch type tool. So you want to remember the kind of type that you have over here in Illustrator. I'm going to go and bring it here so we're going to remember what it is. Type tool, area type, type on a path tool, vertical type tool, vertical area type tool, vertical type tool on the path, and touch type tool. A lot of time you can go to a path right away with a regular type tool and create it directly into the path, but to make sure everything's going to work perfect, you might want to use the type path tool or whatever it is. So the other thing that we have here, where are the character panels? If you click on the drop down menu, this is the character panel. If you click over here, this is the paragraph panel. If you go to your properties, if you go and start working, you can see the character panel and the paragraph panel, and you can have extras in everywhere. So your choice is depending which one you want to work with. But for today, maybe you want to bring a stand-alone paragraph and character panel just to see them. So go to Window, and then you can bring your character panel. Where is it? All the way down under Type. Look what you have under the Type folder. Character, character style, glyph, open type, paragraph, paragraph style, and tab. And we're going to go through everything. So I'm going to click character, and look what I have here. Character, paragraph, and open type technology. You might not have a lot of question about open type because they're not sure which kind of format you're going to use or platform, and then sometime in Windows the open type is not so compatible, so we're not going to look at that. So I'm going to go back here and close that. But now I'm going to click character and then the paragraph over here. I can find it also in the drop down menu or under the paragraph under the properties. So it doesn't matter when you see it. But what is the difference between character and paragraph? They are going to ask you as well. So what do you think the difference is? When you're looking at the character panel, what are you designing? You're designing the look of your typeface. You're designing the look of, you choose the typeface, you choose the style of the typeface, and you're going to choose it. Is it all caps, lower caps? Is it the size, the leading, the kerning, the tracking, and the baseline shift? That's going to be in your character panel. If you go to the flyout menu, you can say show option. It's going to open it a little bit more, and all the way down here you can see the specification of how the typeface is going to look, and you also can snap it to a glyph, which probably not going to be in this test yet because it came out after we wrote the test. And then you have paragraph. What's the difference? In the paragraph, you design the look of the paragraph. Is it aligned to left? Is it aligned to right? Are there space between the paragraph? Are there a leading? Are there indentation between? Is it hyphenated? If it's not hyphenated. So there's two different kind of categories. First you look at the design, and then you look how they see as a paragraph. We're not even talking about saving anything yet in terms of style. Does that make sense?
Which week are you all?
We are week 5. So first of all, we're going to do the character and the paragraph, and we're going to start to do point type. So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to go to the regular type, and then all the way by default, you're going to see that it is going to be Myriad Pro and size 12. If you never use type in Illustrator, it's going to be Myriad Pro and size 12. That's a default. So what is a point type? In Illustrator, you can just click one time on the screen and look what happened. I have lorem ipsum right away. The text is filled for position only. It is 12. It is Myriad Pro regular 12. All the way there, there's also the paragraph. I'm not doing anything with it. I can also go to my properties and decide on the size, or I can go to the character panel. Let's say we want to make that a little bit bigger so we'll see it. So let's say we're making 72. As soon as we made it 72, what do you see all the way up in your control? You see the fill and you see a stroke. So you can add to it a different fill and you can add to it a stroke. But we'll type something. So let's type Adobe Illustrator. And then right now what I have is Adobe Illustrator and it's Myriad Pro. What if we are in the test, you're going to get something that maybe going to have another drawing next to it, but the question will be the following. Change the typeface to Arial, size 55, and choose RGB, CMYK red for the color. That's one question. So what are you going to do? You can go to the character and look over here and look for Arial. And by the way, look at this. Whenever you click on something in real life, you can see a preview. I can also select it with the type tool, and then I can go back and type Arial. So I'm going to start looking at Arial. So they wanted you to make Arial, and then you want to make it Arial bold. That's what they want you to do. And then they're going to make the size, they want to make it 55. And then they want you to go in and make that CMYK red. So I'm clicking on CMYK red on my swatch panel, and that's the answer. Does that make sense? They can tell you to make another color. If they give a number of colors, you're going to make the color. Could be another question. They're going to tell you, change the typeface to, let's say, we're going to change that. I'm not going to change it to a lot of them. I'm going to change it to Verdana, because that's probably the typeface that you're going to get. You might get Myriad, maybe Verdana, Optima, maybe Times, and maybe another one. Very few options you're getting in the test because they don't want to get a lot of them. But you can see how many I have, right? So they wanted you to make it Verdana, and then they want to make it Verdana, and they wanted you to make it bold italic. So I needed to go select it first. So I'm going to do Verdana, bold italic. And they wanted you to make the color to CMYK green. But now they're going to tell you change the tracking to 80. So you're going to go back here, and this is the tracking. You can even go in and go back here and go and change it to 80. And look what happened. More likely it's not going to get out of the page, but this is tracking. Do you see the difference? The entire space between the block of characters, this is tracking. Most of the time, Illustrator personality is to inherit. So if you're going to do your own job after a while and you start doing other stuff, the last thing that you do, Illustrator remembers it. That's it. But a lot of times they're going to ask you, what if they wanted you not to do the tracking? What if you get something that looks like that? Okay, like even this. That's sometimes a very typical question. They're gonna say, make it readable and change the tracking to 20. So you need to know what the tracking is. The first one in the character panel is the size. Then it is the leading. Next to it to the left is the kerning, which we're gonna deal with it in a minute. And next to it, the tracking. If you mark it and say change the tracking to 20 or 25, you see it's readable. Maybe they're also going to ask you change it to all caps. They don't want you to retype it, but you can see here all caps in the character panel. Maybe change that to small caps. Maybe go in and change it superscript, subscript, underline, and strike through. So everything is here in your character panel. You will have other stuff too under the type, and you can have change case, uppercase, lowercase, title case, and sentence case. So what is sentence case? Look at that. The Adobe is with the all caps, and then the Illustrator is without. If you go back here and do title case, look at this. It is rechanging to you. If you go back here, type, change case, lowercase everything. Do you see that? It's all lowercase over here. And then if I go back here and I'm going to change uppercase, it's going to be uppercase. So whatever you're going to do, you're going to go back here and change the stuff to lowercase, uppercase. If you're changing it from the menu bar, a lot of time it's going to be stuck to it. So then you can go back to type, change case, and say, let's say title case. So what if, while you're working with it, maybe you're going to have other stuff. I'm going to go in and make that tracking to 0. And all what I'm doing now, I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to hold on the Option key or Alt key, and I'm going to duplicate. Why am I duplicating it? Because I don't want to retype everything right now. But what if you go to the second one, and they want you to make it all caps? They wanted you to make it maybe 48. All the time, whenever it's all caps, it's already going to be a bigger font, you know? Even if the same size, it's going to look bigger. But in this case, they might ask you to do something with the kerning. Because maybe when you open the file, it will look like that. And I'm just making it right now. And I'm going to make it like this. And even more. So now I'm going to go back here. And then I'm going to do another one next to the A. And I'm going to go in and make that to minus. So look at this. You see the A and the D are kind of connected. And the R and the A are kind of connected. So they might tell you, change the kerning between the A and the D to 20 and between the R and the A to 25. So I'm going to go to A and D with the type tool. And then I'm going to go in and change that to 25. Let's say they wanted 25. I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to go back and change that to 25. Do you see that? So now I changed the kerning, which is the pair of the characters. Does that make sense? Super important. Some typefaces are awesome with their kerning and tracking. The good ones, the old-fashioned ones, like Helvetica and Times and Optima, even Arial, Minion, and Myriad, they have very good tracking and kerning by default. All the crazy ones that sometimes you guys download from the internet, all the new ones, they don't have very good kerning, some of them, and you're going to need to fix it. Another thing that you can do with it as well while you're working. So this one, I cannot change the kerning after they told me kind of what to do with it. And then I'm going to go and zoom in. So this is kind of the original. This is I just went in and kind of changed that. What else they're going to want you to do with it? Look at the Adobe Illustrator. There is something called baseline shift. It's not going to look good on this one because you're not going to see a lot of differences. But we're going to do type on a path. All of a sudden, you're going to see a difference. Where is the baseline shift? Is all the way down in your character. And then you can send it below or on top of the same line that the type is sitting on. The one that I never use, and hopefully you're not going to have any questions about it, is character rotation. Because this is kind of a faux italic. Looks terrible if you look at that. You really don't want to do stuff like this. Look at this. Adobe Illustrator. How bad does it look? It's not italic. It's tailing and rotating it. The italic is going to look a lot different. What does it mean? So I'm going to go to this one. And this one is Verdana. And then I'm going to make it just italic. So you see that's italic. I'm going to look to this one, and I want to make this one also the same typeface. You do have another tool that you can borrow the style. And what is it? It is the eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool in Illustrator samples colors for you, but also will sample styles. What does it mean? If I double click, you can see what it's going to sample. So look what I'm doing. I'm going to go and I can select this type. And with the eyedropper, I'm going to click on the other one. And look what happened to the other one. It became identical to this one. So you can sample that. But you can see this is Verdana Italic. If I'm going to make it regular, and I'm going to go back here and kind of make it almost kind of, I'm going to go and make italicize it or rotate it. Look how it's looking. It is not looking like italic. So it just rotates the characters there and it doesn't look so good. Does that make sense? Again, I can change that to no caps and you can see I have it over here. So you have to familiarize yourself. What do you have in your character panel? You have the name of the typeface. You have the style of the typeface. So the top one is it's the font family or the typeface. And then next to it is the font style. Below that is the font size. Across from it is the leading. Below that is the kerning between two characters. And then the tracking within inside the selected characters. Then the next one below that, we didn't even do it yet. This is horizontal and vertical. So this is vertical scaling. So if I'm going to go back and make it 200, look what happened to this typeface. As soon as I did that, it is the same Verdana, but it looks kind of longer because the vertical style for this typeface is 200. If I make it into 100, it looks okay. And then the horizontal one, look what I'm doing now. Very long or very tight, and I'm going to change now the horizontal scaling. So you see it's kind of squished and longer. So they might ask you to change horizontal, vertical, and this is why you need to know about it. You might not need to type it. It's going to have some type all over the place, and they're going to tell you change this, this, and this. Most of the time, 3 things only. Color, tracking, and maybe caps, or maybe underline, and kerning, and italic, or maybe change it to another font family. Does that make sense? So you really need to remember the character panel. But I'm still working, how did I call it? I called it point type, right? So what does it mean, point type? If I click on Adobe Illustrator here, what do you see around it? Let me make it, I'm going to make it bold so you can see it a little bit better, and I'm going to make it dark red. Do you see a bounding box around it? That's a default. If you have a point type, there's no other text frame behind it. If I'm going to the side, holding down even the shift key or not the shift key, look what I can do. You see what I'm doing with the type? I can change the size of the type at any time by looking and changing the bounding box around it. That's a point type. You click on the screen and you type. When do you use a lot of point type? Logos. Whenever you create a logo, it's going to be a point type. We're going to have some paragraphs, probably going to be an area type. So let's look at the difference between them and how you can change one from point to area and vice versa, because there may be some time they wanted you to do it. I'm going to look at this one. Do you see it comes in with a little kind of like handle over there next to it? Tiny little handle. I'm going to duplicate this one. Now, I'm going to go to the first one. It's point type still. And I'm going to make that a little smaller. You can see I can move it around. It is a point type. I can do anything that I want. The second one, it used to be the same, right? I want to change that from a point to an area. How would you do that? 2 ways. You can do type, and you can say convert to area type. And look what happens over here. All of a sudden, it looks different a little bit. That's a text frame, and the type sits inside. How do you know the difference between them? I'm going to select the 2 of them so you can see the difference. One has just a bounding box. The other one has an inside, an in port that they call it, and an out port. Can you automatically change it on the screen? Yes, if you double click on this area here, on the little edge, double click, point, double click area. What is the difference? Look at what I'm doing now. I want to make the area type, I want to change the size of the type to make it a lot bigger. So I'm going to do it like I'm doing it in point, right? And I'm going to go in and doing that. What happens to the type? Nothing. Because this type sits inside a frame. So in order for you to change the size, you have to highlight the type, do select all, and then change the size of the typeface. And then you can see there's more space here to do maybe other stuff. If I'm going to go in and do stuff like this, and that might be a question, let me just go in and make it, let's say, orange. And you might have a question and you can say, what is it? Look at that. You don't see the type. Why is it? Because if you zoom into it, look when you see at the edge of the text frame. Do you see a tiny little square with a plus and it's red? That tells you that it's an overset text. There's text there, but the frame is too small. So how do you solve that? Because they might ask you, solve it to reveal the rest. You click and you bring it out. And you make the frame a little bit bigger. Look what happens if I do that. Why is it looking like this? Adobe Illustrator, because I made the frame a little smaller and the typeface is still the same size. Does that make sense? And that's usually done for area type. So I'm going to go back here and click in here, and I want it to do to point type, double click. And then I'm going to go back here and see I can do whatever I want over here. Does that make sense? So that's a point type. I'm going to go back here to my layers panel. And I'm going to lock this layer. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click on the other one and I'm going to say area. Just a simple area type. Area type. And I'm going to go to the next artboard. I'm going to name it the same name with the artboard tool. And I'm going to call it area. And now we're going to do the same thing, but instead of just clicking on the screen, we're going to create a frame. But before doing that, I kind of want to make the type a little bit smaller. So I'm going to use maybe Verdana Bold, but I'm going to make the type maybe size 18. I'm going to click on the string and drag a text frame. You see what I'm doing? Dragging a text frame. Look what I got. This is an area type. You can see it inside the area over here. And if I want to change the size of the text, I will have to go to the type, select all, and I want to change that to a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. Color's going to be the same. So do you see what I have here? That's an area type. What is the difference between the two of them? First of all, this is an area, and you can have your paragraph inside and then change the paragraph look, and we're going to look at that as well in a minute. Second of all, this one still has a frame behind the scene. How do you know? The best way to look at it is to go to View and Outline. And look what you see in the outline over here. If you go to the direct selection tool and just click on the frame, not on the text, just on the frame, and change the frame to yellow, deselect, view, over preview. Look what happened. Look what I just did. I changed the frame below that. Now you tell me, I want to move the text inside. You can't. You have to do it with the menu. I cannot tell this, move it, because everything it's inside. Does that make sense? To the point that even if I go to the direct selection tool, and look what I'm doing. Do you see what happened? That's an area type. It's going to go and change the way the type is in there. Does that make sense? I want to make sure it makes sense because it's super important. Let me know if it is kind of like, if you understand that. So if I do Command Z and bring it back, what else? So you're going to tell me, well, let's say I'm going to type something because it's Lauren Epson, it's kind of hard. So I'm going to call it, I'm going to say Adobe Illustrator is amazing shift return software to play with and design. I could have even copy and paste something, and maybe I don't want the rest over here. So you can see here, this is the size of my box right now. If I wanted to make it a lot smaller, I can make the box smaller. Did I make the type smaller? Nope. Do you see that? The type has nothing to do to the box. You have to change the size. You have to go to the type. Hold on the Option key. I'm going to duplicate it. Now I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I want to make the type to align to the center. So I'm going to select that, highlight the type, and I'm going to go to the paragraph and align to center. Do you see it's aligned to center? I can go align to right. I can go align and justified. I can go in and justify center. I can go justified right, and I can say all justified. That's what you have in your paragraph. I'm going to look at other stuff that you have there in a second. So I'm going to say align to center. Now you're going to tell me, I don't really like it. I want it to be in the center of the box. I can't move it. Unless you cheat, and I'll show you what to do if you do that. So how would you do that? You're going to select the entire box. You're going to go to type, area type options. Do you see that? Now in the area type options, you want to click on the preview. And then you can make a decision. How do you want to have it? You want to go in and make it cap height. You want to go back here and height. You want to go back here, EM box. You want to go in fix. You want to go back here and have legacy. I believe that in 2022, you also have center right now, because that's a new one that they have. Also, you can go back here and do inset spacing. So look what I'm doing. I'm changing the inset, so look what happened to the box. Now it sits inside the area because I changed the inset of the stuff that I have. So do you have a lot of stuff over here? You can also auto resize. So when you do auto resize, you continue typing, the type is going to grow with the stuff that you have. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the area type. But let's say if you didn't want to do that for your own thing, what if I want to do a standalone? So look what I'm doing. I'm going to copy that, Command C. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to make just a rectangle. Let's say the rectangle is going to be red. I'm going to deselect. I'm going to move it a little bit. And then I'm going to type somewhere else, because look what happened if I'm going to go to the type tool. Let me just make it a different color so I want you to see the symbol. If I want to go directly to this one with the type tool, if I click somewhere outside, you see a straight line. If I click, I'm going to get the type. Look what happened if I'm inside. Do you see a little circle? It wants to go inside. If I don't want them to be one, I'm going to click over here and I'm going to paste. So I pasted that. I might make it center. And now I'm going to go in and do this. This one is a frame and a text. They are not attached to each other. Does that make sense? Some people like to design like this because maybe they want to do stuff that look like this, that doesn't have all the elements that you have in your paragraph style there. So that's another way to do it, but just remember, it's a line on top of another object that you have. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go and zoom into it. And now we're going to go into the next one. And then we're going to call it area. And we're going to call it place. We're going to place something. So I'm going to deselect. I'm going to lock the other layer. And I'm going to zoom into that. You can place your type also. You can place it general. You can place it to an area. So let's do file and place. And I'm going to go to the text area. And look what I have. I have something that says typography here. And if it's grayed out, all the way down, change the format to all document. And just click on it. It's a very big kind of like type in a big story. So I'm going to go and click place. And then I'm going to click OK. And then I click OK. And look at that. If I click one time on the screen, it's going to be one long frame with everything in it. I just placed it. It looks for the minimal whatever typeface that I have. And then I have it here. But what if I wanted to create something? File and place. And then I'm going to do file place. And then I'm going to click on it. And then look what I'm doing now. I don't want to go in and do the entire thing. So I'm going to click on the screen and I'm going to drag a frame. And look what I have there. I have a frame with some stuff, and you can see that I have stuff for position only. Inside the red area I have overset text. But I want to go and change the style. So I'm going to say select all. When you do select all, you're basically selecting the entire text inside. And let's say I want to make that myriad, and I might make that size, let's say 21. And then maybe I want to change the leading. I might go to the leading and change the leading. So you see, the more I change the leading, the less information I have, because my text is very small, my frame. So now, what are your options now if you want to see other stuff? The way Illustrator works is, I'm going to go in and make it even smaller, and I'm going to zoom into it. The way it works is, if I click over here, I'm going to go back here and put these guys here, so we're going to see everything in here. That's why I use a lot of time the properties panel, so I have less stuff on the screen. So if you click on the red plus, the overset text, one click, you click on it, look what you have in your cursor. Do you see the cursor is kind of loaded with type? Do you see that? If you do one click on the screen, what is the size of the next frame? Exactly the same size of the current frame before. Does that make sense? If I click again, and now look what I'm doing, making a tiny frame. I have a tiny frame here. If I click again next to it, and I do one click, look at the size of the frame. Exactly the same size. Does that make sense? Now we're going to do another thing with it. We're going to go into our ellipse tool. We're going to click and drag an ellipse, and we're going to change the ellipse color, let's say to yellow. And now we're going to click on the overset, and then look at that. If you're outside, it's going to be the same size, but if I go inside the ellipse, I don't even need to select it. Do you see the cursor is round? That tells you I am going in. And look what happened. When it goes in, it takes the color away in Illustrator. Does that make sense? Always takes the color away. Now, if I click on this one, and I just do one click, look what happened. The last one that you get. Even if you draw with a pencil an area, the last one is going to be that. Does that make sense? So they are kind of connected to each other. How do you know? You see the lines. If you go to view, you can go in and say hide over here, hide edges over here. If you're going to go back here, you see it's not. If you click here now, view, show edges. It's just going to show you how it goes in there. So if you deselect, you don't see that. So again, if I'm going to go in and do select all, look what happened. They are connected to each other. Does that make sense? I'm going to change the typeface now. It will change the typeface across the board for all of it. So if I'm going to go to preferences, to properties, and change that to myriad, and maybe change it to myriad italic or whatever you have, or semi-bold italic, whatever you have in your typefaces that you have, if you're going to go and change it. Also, you're not going to do it in the test, but you want to know about it. When you go to anything that you choose and you go to the type or the character or the font family, if you click over here, look what you have. You can go in and decide which typeface do you want to work with. In the test, they're going to ask you, but in real life, I'm not sure how I'm going to want it to look, so I'm testing it. Also, you have a filter over here. you can click here and filter it to classification. And that's kind of cool because you can go back here. Let's say I'm going to go back here to the properties. Let's say I'm going to put it over here so it's going to be easier. I'm going to click over here and I'm going to say classification. I want to make it sans serif or serif. So you can see here, these are my serif font that I have on my computer. If I'm going to go back and say I want to see only the decorative, these are the decorative font that I have on my computer. If you don't want to create any specification, you click over here and say clear all. You can take any typeface and you can make that your favorite by clicking on the little star next to it, and then later on, if you're going to go by favorite, you're going to see your favorite fonts. Next to it, there's another one, show recently added, and then shows you all the cloud fonts that you have. In the test, you don't have cloud fonts, so you don't have to worry about it. That's when you start working in Illustrator. In the test, they're going to tell you which fonts to use. You're not going to need to say, well, I want to make it a lot nicer. Let me think. They're going to tell you, Optima, Helvetica, anything, and you're going to have it in the test on the computer. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? So now, let's say I want to go in. I'm just going to go and do Verdana because that's something that you're going to get a lot in the test. It's a very simple typeface. Look at this. Still, if I want to change the color of the box behind, I can go to View and Outline. With the Direct Selection tool, I'm going to click on the box and look what I'm going to change. Now if I do this red, that's red. Now I'm going to go to this one. It's going to be green. I'm going to select the two of them next to it. I'm going to make them purple. And these two, I'm going to go and make it orange. View, preview. Look what I just did. I didn't change the color of the typeface. I changed the color of the text frame. If I do select all, and now I'm going to change the typeface to white, now you're going to see that the typeface is white. Does that make sense? Then you can go back here to one by one and start selecting one and just say type, area type options, and then maybe you want to leave it as is, but just indent the spacing inside. So you see, it gives it more spacing, and then I can go in and say cap height or leading, and now it's in the center. So you see, it's only for this one. This one I still want to work with if I needed to do that. So if your area type has, you need to do a color, make sure you take care of it later and you don't want the type to be inside the edges. Does that make sense? So far so good. We're going to save that. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to do File, Save As because I don't want to crash. And I'm going to go into my desktop and I save it a text. Fine. I'm going to go next to my layers and I'm going to close it. So the next thing I want to do is area type. You can copy and paste anything for anywhere, or you can type, not area, type on a path. So I'm going to click on the add layer and I'm going to say type on a path. So what do you want to do here? You can create any kind of a path right now. I'm going to go, let's say, even the curvature tool. I'm going to click and drag and look at this. I'm going to create some kind of a curve. And then I'm going to change the stroke to a certain color. And I'm going to make the stroke, let's say, orange. And I'm even going to make it size 4. Now, I want to put some text on it. So depending if you want to go and type it or you want to copy something from the other image from before. So I'm going to unlock the other layer and I'm basically going to copy just the first sentence, which says typography is the craft of enduing human language with a durable visual form. And I might do it also with my quotation mark. And where did I take this little guy? I took it from the internet. I just said, give me some type about typography. And I'm going to lock the layer and I'm going to go to layer 4. So now, if I'm still on a regular type tool, I'm going to go back here. I can click here. Look at that. The cursor is straight. If I paste, that's going to be on a straight line. But as soon as the type tool recognizes that you have a path, it gets a little leg there, and if I click, this is what I get. Do you see that? Or you can go back, and now I'm going to paste it, and now I have that, and it's too much text that I had before. So I'm going to go back here, select all, and maybe I'm going to make it not size that, and I'm going to make that size maybe 21, and I'm going to make it red, and this is what I have. So you can see I still have some missing text there. It's for position. You see here the overset text. So what would you do with that? You can change the size of the path, or you can change the size of the type. If I want to change the size of the path, I'm going to click at the end of the path and I'm going to make the path a lot bigger. And you can see now it has it. Because it's a path, look what I still can do. Now it's not going to be as readable, but maybe I want to have it very artistic. Do you see that? Because it's still, but what do you see the characteristic of it? What disappeared? The stroke color disappeared. Like the fill disappeared, the stroke color disappeared too. So I can still do a stroke, but we're going to do it in a minute. Do you see that? I have that here. So the same idea, and we're going to play with it. You might get kind of like a image on the screen, and it is going to have an ellipse. And doesn't matter what color, could be any color that you have there. And they're going to tell you, copy this and this. They're going to tell you to copy a sentence and place it around the circle. So I can go into the regular type tool and click outside. But in this case, I'm going to go to my type on a path. And I'm going to click and paste. And then I'm going to do select all. And I'm going to change the color, of course, because the color was a different color. So now I can see here, it is around the circle. I might make the typeface a little bit bigger. Maybe I made it 28. And now I'm going to go in and make the kerning, the tracking, I'm going to make that maybe 50. Or 25, so you see that. Or maybe I can make that a little bit more, so it's kind of like almost attached. But now we're going to look at the baseline shift. So what happens? I have the circle around, and what do you have here? What did you lose? We lost the color of the circle. Does that make sense? If you lose the color of the circle, how would you recolor it? You can either go to view or preview, or I can also right away go to the direct selection tool, and my smart guide will show me where the circle is. And I'm going to click on the circle and make it green. So what's wrong with that? What doesn't look good right now? It doesn't look like a nice logo, because the type sits exactly on the edge of the circle. Can I change the size of the circle? I don't think so. Because look what happened right now. If I decide to change the size of the circle and then do something, look what happened. The circle and the type are the same entity. Does that make sense? So I'm going to Command Z. So what should I do right now? That's when you do baseline shift. I'm going to go to the type, I'm going to do select all, and I can go to the character panel, and then I'm going to go either the character panel or the properties, and then all the way down I'm going to say more options, and I'm going to go to the baseline shift and I'm going to type. And you see what happened now? I'm changing the baseline shift to a little bit bigger, a little bit more space. The baseline shift right now, if I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to go into my properties, my baseline shift right now is 15 point. I can make it completely outside, and look at that. That's what you mean baseline shift. Do you see that? I'm going to click on this one and move it. Do you see the baseline shift is outside the circle? Can I go into the baseline shift, select all, and make it a little inside? Absolutely. I can do the baseline shift, and I'm going to assume minus 12. And maybe another kind of minus. And look what happened. Now it's inside as a circle. Do you see what I have there? If I zoom into it, look at what you get. That's what you get over there. Does that make sense? That's baseline shift. It will go inside or outside depending how you want to do your stuff. Does that make sense? So it has to be kind of like you have to remember how to do if they wanted you to change. Let's say you get that as a question. So now what they want you to do, change the baseline shift to 25. So you're going to go in, select all. You're going to go to the type. And then you're going to go either to the properties or to the character panel or the drop down menu in the control. And then you're going to go in, and they wanted you to make it 15. So you're going to type 15. And that's the answer. What did you do? You changed the baseline shift to a different one. Does that make sense? So in real life, sometimes you wanted it to be a little bit different. What if you wanted to control the circle by itself and the type by itself? Because at the moment, look what happened. If I'm going to go and change the size of the circle, look what happened. The size of the circle and the type are changing together. I can also go back here. I can go in and duplicate it. I can even go to the other one and say, well, I don't like the way the circle is. Let me make it kind of like not a circle. Look what happened. So all of a sudden, the type follows the path that you have. If you don't want it to do it, the way to do it is create a circle. Let's say we're going to do another circle. And I'm going to make it a perfect circle. And in this case, I'm going to make that a different kind of color. So I'm going to make that green. And now I'm going to go in and select the circle, edit and copy, and edit and paste in front. So I basically have two circles together, one on top of each other. Does that make sense? I can go to the one in front, and then I can go to my scale tool, and I can double click on it, and I'm going to say I want to scale that 80% uniform, and click OK. So I have two circles, one on top of each other. Now I'm going to go into the type and to type on a path, And I'm going to go to the top circle and just click and paste. And then it forgot what I had there, so I'm going to go back here and hit select all and copy. And I'm going to select all and paste. And now I have that. And I might go in and make that a little bit bigger. So look what I have right now. I have the circle that is standalone, and I have the type with on another circle that doesn't have a color. Does that make sense? What if you wanted to make for me something really fun? You can go to the direct selection tool, select that, and save and do this. And look what I have here. So now I have a circle that I can do everything with it, but the dark green belongs to the type. Does that make sense? So you can do a lot of fun stuff with it while you're working. In the test, they might show you a drawing that has a lot of elements, and then they're going to give you a sentence, and they're going to tell you where to place it along a path and what typeface to use for it. So they're going to tell you, this is a box, place this kind of a sentence inside or outside the area that you have. Does that make sense? Also in the test, I think you can go into the area and go right click on the sentence that they give you, and I think it will copy it for you, so you basically don't have even to type it. Does that make sense? And I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to zoom out and let's see what else I have there. So you see here I can have some kind of information here, and I'm going to look at the stuff that I did so far, and I do have the point, and I have the area, and I have another kind of area that I placed, and I have the path. Can you go in and draw something and then put it inside an area? Absolutely. Everything can go directly to an area while you're doing. So what does it mean? I can go to my layer, and then before kind of locking layer 4, I'm going to go to my regular type tool, and then I'm going to unlock layer number 3, and I'm going to kind of like copy part of the sentence here. I'm going to copy a sentence. And then I'm going to lock layer 3 and layer 4. I'm going to double click on the layer I didn't give it a name, and I'm going to call it path. And I'm going to create a new layer, and that's going to be the area. So I can go, let's say, to a rectangle. And then I can make the rectangle any size, any color. And I can zoom into it, and I can go to type in an area and click inside. And look what happened. And then I'm going to paste, and I'm going to paste exactly what I copied. I can make that a lot bigger because it's not very big. I'm going to go and make that, let's say, size, let's say 36. So look at that. I put it size 36, and that's how you open the stuff over here, and they're going to show you. And the question is going to be the following. They want you to go in and change the leading. So you're going to go to the character, and they're going to tell you change the leading to, let's say, 36. And align that to the center. So that's going to be a paragraph. Does that make sense? And that's going to be it. After a while, they're going to ask you to do spacing for paragraph and other stuff. So we're going to go in and do it when we're going to do the next project. But you can see here, this one is an area that I went in with the type in an area. And if I change the size of the frame, it's not going to change the size of the font. Does that make sense? Super, super important. I think this is the most question that you have. Is going to be a lot of pen tool, a lot of typography, and a little bit of masking. So these are the components that you're going to have to really remember. Once again, if I wanted to change the color of the text frame, direct selection tool, selecting that, clicking, that's the text frame. If I want to go back here, I'm going to go to type, area type option. And over here, I can go back here and change it. So I can go in and line. I can go align to center, so it's aligning it to the center, which I like it already, but I don't want it to be to the size. So I'm going to go in and do the indenting. You see here, the spacing. So when you do the inset spacing to make it look a lot better, you have to be careful not to see this red plus. All of a sudden I see the red plus, so I know that I have to do something. So I'm going to do select all over here, and maybe I want to go back here and make that a little bit smaller. So now I have the typeface a little bit smaller. Does that make sense? And they all belong to each other. So what does it mean? If I go to the direct selection tool and just do that, that's what I get. If I'm going to go back here, that's what I get. The text is growing within the stuff that has inside the frame. The frame is leading here. Does that make sense? So remember I just did stuff. I'm going to do stuff a little bit different. I'm going to go to the rectangle tool. And I'm going to click on it right now. Now I'm going to go to my knife tool. And I'm going to click and knife this one. And I'm going to click and knife this one. And really, I should probably bring some kind of a stroke just for now. So at least I can see it. Now I'm going to go in type, area type tool, and I'm going to click in here and paste. And then I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to make that the other color. So I have it over here. Now I have the offset. Click inside one time and click here. And again, it does kind of like the different color. And then if I needed to do more because I don't have enough text, I'm going to select all and then going to go back here and do that. You can see I have it here. I don't have any more text here, so this one doesn't have to be a text. But you can see here, I kind of created a little way of putting text in different art shapes. You can cut the shape with the knife tool and place the text inside. Does that make sense? So again, what they're going to tell you, you might see a little circle somewhere and they're going to tell you put it inside, put it outside. Tracking, kerning, leading, baseline shift, and then also all caps, small caps, and all kind of stuff like that. Does that make sense? Any questions before we move on to the next one, which is creating outlines? Any questions? So now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go into the layers. I'm going to lock it. I'm going to go a new layer, and I'm going to call it create outline. And of course, I think next week we're going to also go in and continue something with text, and then we're going to start working with masking text. So now, let's say we're going to type, and then we're going to click on the screen one time. Usually it's going to take the last time you use some kind of a typeface. So I'm going to type, I love Adobe Illustrator. And look at that. It will remember the alignment that I did. I'm going to do select all. I'm still on Vardana over there. Oops. I don't know why it is went in there. Okay. I'm going to go in and type I love Adobe Illustrator. And then if I didn't and want to do it kind of like sentence type, change case, I'm going to go in and say title case. Perfect. It still tells me it's Vardana. I'm going to go purposely, I'm going to say bold. And then I might go in and make it, let's say, 38. And then bring it over here. And then next to I love, I'm going to shift return and do stuff like this. And now I'm going to highlight that. And I'm going to change the leading to a little more. So I'm going to make it look the way I want. And maybe even all caps. And now I'm going to duplicate it. Why? Because the first one is going to be exactly how I wanted. I'm going to go and do actually select all. I'm going to check even my baseline shift. You see the baseline shift? State 15. So I'm going to go back here and make the baseline shift 0. I'm going to go back to this one. Baseline shift. I'm going to change that to 0. Always want to check it out because the last time you're going to do something, that's when it is remembering. So I'm going to go in and maybe make the leading a little bit wider. But now I want to go in and create something fun with it. So I can zoom into it. And then I can go to type, create outline. When I create outline, guess what I love Adobe Illustrator is right now? It is not a typeface anymore or a font. It is an object. That's why I duplicated it in case I want to see this one. So if I'm looking at my layers panel, and I'm going to make my panel option a little bit bigger, so you can see it. The first one over here, this is the typeface. The second one, look what happened here. It is a group, and when you open a group, look what happened to each typeface, to each character. Each character, what is it? It's a compound. So now, what am I gaining right now with it? If I double click, let's say, on the eye, and I'm going to make the eye a lot bigger, and maybe go in and make that a different color. And then I'm going to select the O, the L, the V, and the E, and then I'm going to bring them over here. So now you can see that the eye is really bigger and I can create anything from it. And then I'm going to go in and make it, let's say, green. I can also go to any of the stuff here, and with the direct selection tool, I can select a path, hold on the shift key and select another one, and then go in and do stuff that looks like this. So look what happened to the eye right now. The eye is a different kind of an eye now because I made it a lot bigger. So when you create outline in Illustrator, you're no longer in a typeface. When do you create outline? A, when you make logos on icon. B, let's say tomorrow you design let's say a t-shirt, and there's a lot of type, and the printer tells you, you know what, I kind of don't feel like loading the fonts that you do. I don't even have them. I don't even have Creative Cloud. I have CS4, and save it for CS4, but it's going to tell you create outline. And that's what he means, because if you create outline from any typeface that you have, you can load it because it's not typeface anymore. Creating outline from a typeface is creating object. Does that make sense? And it's absolutely an object for everything. So I can go back and select that and go back here and look at that. And this is why sometime when I do stuff like this, maybe first I'm going to change the kerning and the tracking so it's going to match, and then I'm going to do some other stuff. So look at that. Now maybe I want to do stuff that looks like this, and I'm going to select the Adobe and then I'm going to move that a little bit to the side. And then I'm going to go back to the L and the E. And a lot of time what I'm going to do here, maybe zoom in, make sure you don't even have a bounding box so you can select it a lot easy. And then go back here and move that to Illustrator. So I kind of created something, maybe looks fun and maybe looks like something that you have. And then I'm going to go back here and then do that. And then I'm going to go back here to the Adobe, and then I'm going to go and do green. So you can see here it's no longer a typeface. It is just a pattern of some kind, or an object of some kind, or anything that you have. So anything that you do, if they wanted you to start fixing stuff, you know they wanted you to do outline before time. So you want to create the outline before you do anything that you have. And now if I zoom out, and I can create different kind of things with it. And then of course I can also go back here, make it a lot bigger, make it a lot smaller. Now it is within the group, and then I can add stuff to it if I want. So most of the time creating outline, first of all, there's some rule. You kind of don't want to create outline to typeface at less than 12 points because it starts to be really not clear. So let's say you're going to do a big flyer and the printer doesn't want it. You say, well, you got to get the font because I use type size 4 and 6, and creating outlines is not going to look good. It changed a little bit the look of the font, and then when you have that, but still, if I zoom into it, we didn't even look at some. I'm going to go back here. I still don't have a stroke. Can I put a stroke? Absolutely. I forgot to put a stroke, but look at that. Now I have that, and I put a stroke in there. So you can go in and put a stroke about any type that you have. This kind is not typed yet. This one is creating outline. Does that make sense? But I do have a stroke. I can go to this one. I'm going to duplicate it. I usually like to duplicate stuff so we don't have to type 200 times. And I'm going to zoom in. And I'm going to duplicate that and put it here. So this one's still typeface. I can change the typeface, and now look what I have. I do have a stroke around it. You have to be careful with stroke because a lot of times the stroke will eat the entire thing. So when I do a stroke, a lot of time I change the tracking a little bit. Why? Because then it's going to be a lot of breathing to give it, and that's what you want to do. Does that make sense? The last thing that we're going to do is we are going to look at our layers panel, and then we're going to zoom out a little bit. And I think I have this one. So I'm going to go in and lock this layer and open a new layer. This time we're going to do stuff called touch type. Why do they call it touch type? When they made it in the beginning, they made it to touch screens only. But then they realized some other people are going to really use it for a lot of stuff. So then they decided you can use it whatever. So what is touch type is doing? You might need to do that in the test because they might ask you to do a certain pattern to a sentence without creating outline. What does it mean? I'm going to go back here and I'm going to click and I'm going to call it I love Adobe Illustrator. Illustrator. Okay. What am I doing? I I don't even know how to type. I love Adobe Illustrator. Illustrator. Okay. So now I'm going to go in and maybe I want to select and do some kind of effect with it. So I can do anything, or let's say I'm going to go I love, and I'm going to do shift return. And then I'm going to tell you create some kind of a pattern, but do not create outline. So I'm going to go and duplicate it, of course. And now I'm going to go to my touch type. And I'm clicking on the touch type. And the way the touch type is working, anytime you click on a sentence or character, see this is still type. I can go in and make it bigger. I can go outside and make it a little smaller, round, and I can start moving stuff. And I can just go and create some kind of a pattern. I didn't actually create outline. I can change the color. I can change later the typeface. And you cannot select more than one at a time, so you have to do it one at a time, which is annoying. I wish you can hold down the shift key and do some more, but you can. So you see here I love Adobe Illustrator, and then I'm going to go into the I and to the L, and I'm going to put here, and then I'm going to put that here. So I'm not going to do a lot of crazy stuff, but what does it mean? I do have some pattern on the screen. But what I can do with the pattern on the screen now, you can look at that. It's still Verdana. So I created a pattern, and now I can even go in and change that to Skya, or to Bit Empty, or to Academy Loyal, or to whatever you have. And look at that. It is still a touch type, and this is stuff that you can do with anything that you want and just play with it. The only drawback to it is that you cannot select more than one character together. So if I want to do the shift key, it just do the other one. And sometimes what I find, if I mess it up too much, it's hard for me to catch the other one next to it. But I can do each one of them, different color, different thing. There's still a typeface. Can I do it more like the other one that really stretches crazy stuff? No. Because this one is a touch type, and then you cannot go to the direct selection tool, because basically it's still a typeface. Does that make sense? Does that make sense so far? So they can ask you about what kind of typefaces that you have. And you'll have a regular typeface, area type tool, type on the path tool, vertical type tool, vertical area type tool, vertical type on a path, and touch type. These are the components of the style of the type. Then you have area type that you click and drag to a frame, and then point type. You might have a question about what is the difference between a point type and an area type, and then you're gonna have to find the answer to it. Does that make sense? And then of course kerning and tracking and leading and vertical space and horizontal space and baseline shift. This is the guideline for you to choose the stuff. You're not going to have to deal with what kind of font am I using today, because they are going to guide you through the typeface. I can tell you 90% of the time that I'm wasting when I'm designing thinking about the typeface. I love them so much, but sometimes I cannot make a decision. And I will sit for like hours and look. I like this one, but I like that one. And then start researching and thinking what the client wants to see and to tell. And then again, and I can do something that I really love. And then somebody gonna say, this is so bad. We hate this font. So font is really also has a personal touch to it. Some people like some. There's also trending. So if you go to Adobe font online, they're going to tell you what's trending, what's not trending, what people are using all the time, and it's really good to know. So the last one, we're just going to do we'll play with it. So I'm going to do a new layer, and I'm going to call the layer playing with type. Now we're just gonna play with something depending what do you want to do. So let's say I wanted to go in and do type on a circle. So I'm gonna go back here and do the ellipse, and I'm gonna make a big ellipse, and I think I still have something that I copy and pasted before. So I'm gonna click here, and then I'm gonna paste, and then I think it select all, and then the color was white, and I'm going to make that, let's say, red. And this is what I have here, and I'm going to select all again, and then make that maybe a little bit smaller, so everything is going to be there. And then I'm going to select that and make it, maybe the kerning, the tracking is going to be a little higher, so I can see the stuff looking a little bit better. Okay, so let's say I have stuff like this, and I want to start kind of playing with it. I can select the text, and then I can double click on the scale tool, and then I can go back here and say I want it to be 90, and I want to go and click copy. And the next one that I'm going to do, I might go in and do another color. And once I have it, I'm going to do Command or Control D, transform again. It does it for me. And then I'm going to do another color and transform again. And I'm going to do another color. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm painting with my colors right now. I'm painting with my type. And of course, if I'm gonna do nice colors, it's gonna go and be really nice, and this is what I have. So now I can use that for anything that I have. I can group it, I can make it smaller, and then I can go in and do some stuff for background for anything that I have. Does that make sense? So that's kind of just playing with type and doing all kind of stuff that you have. I even can go, and it's not going to be in the test, to edit, no, object, and I'm going to go into repeat, and I'm going to go into radial. And look what happened. It made for me an immediate radial repeat. And that can be maybe a background or something. Think about if you're going to do some icons and all kind of stuff that you have in your head. This is something that you want to take into consideration. Does that make sense? So now this is called, like, I'm just going to go back here, and it's still type. So I just have it here, right? And then I can go back here and make it smaller. And then if I want to break the machine right now, I will go into object and repeat, and I'm going to go grid, and now it's going to do it to repeat grid. Again, these are new things that you have in 2022 and part in 2021. They are not really part of the text yet, but look how awesome they are. And of course, I like to kind of play with it. They have that also in Illustrator on the iPad. The repeat, it actually came from there. So what if I wanted to do something else? What if I wanted to go just to a curvature tool? And then just do that. and go to type on a path now and then paste. And let's say I have that, and I don't care what I'm writing. I might do it a little bit bigger so we can see it a little bit better here. And then maybe I want to go and make that, let's say 36. Again, I can go in and play with it the way I want. I'm just going to make this one a lot smaller, so it's going to be somewhere here. But this one, I can actually do the same idea. I can go now to my rotate tool, and then I'm going to option click where I want to rotate, and then I'm going to make it, let's say 36, and copy. And now I can give that a different color, and then transform again, and transform again. So text also can be some kind of stuff that you can start drawing with it, not in the test, in real life. I use a lot of text in Illustrator and then make from it some kind of illusion of any kind of drawing or anything that you have. Does that make sense? So basically, that's what we have here. What else do we have? We have other stuff that might be in the test, which are going to go in, and we're going to work the stuff. And then we are going to go in and create some others. So let's just go in and close this one. If you want to save it, you can. And we're going to look at another thing that you have a lot in the test. And next week, we're going to start the week with a little brochure, and then we're going to move on to the other one. So we're going to still deal with some stuff with type. And look at that, it doesn't want to save so fast. I'm going to check it out and see if I have the force quit. Yeah, my Illustrator is not really responding because I did a little bit too much. And then I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go in and click on Illustrator. Don't want to send a report. I'm just going to go in and bring it over. And now it tells me the Illustrator quit. I'm going to say okay. All what I'm going to do now is, I don't want to have the other one. I'm going to click and close that. And now I'm going to do File and New. If you go in to do File and New, I crashed already, so my File New has 1 artboard. But if you didn't crash, well, it's going to tell you 8 artboards. I'm going to do 1 artboard. 8.5 by 11, and all what you want to do is File and Place, and go in to week 5, working with type, and click on the text, and then make that all document, and basically place it, and click and drag a frame. I want it to be a little bit bigger. So I might go back here to the character and maybe make it maybe 20, maybe 18. So you might get something like this on the screen. And then you're going to get, let's say next to it, a little star. I'm going to make a star. And I'm going to put the star over here. And maybe the star, it is going to have a certain color. And they're going to tell you to wrap the text, that star, around the text with a certain way. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to Option, Object, and Text Wrap. And Text Wrap Options. And they want to tell you Text Wrap 10 points. And then you're going to go to Object, Text Wrap, and Make. And that's the answer. So do you see what happened? It just pushed whatever you have to the area and pushed your text. Basically, when you do text wrap in Illustrator, if I put it in the middle, look what happens. Can I change it? Object, text wrap options. Now I have the preview and I can make that to something like this. And you can see it wraps around the area that you have. So you're going to get something really, really simple, but this is something that you want to know about it, because you can have any kind of object and wrap around. It has to be a vector. You cannot be a pixel. It has to be the vector is pushing. If you had a Photoshop file, it's not going to do that. Okay, so let's just check out what we have. And next week, we're going to do the brochure. So under the type menu bar, what do you have? More font, recent font that you use, size. You have something called glyphs, and we're going to deal with it next week. And then you have over here, type conversion, area type on a path. Let's say I'm just going to select it so you can see. So you can say that, convert to point if you want. You can go area type option, type on a path, and thread the text if you want to thread it around. Then you fit headline, resolve missing font. It's not going to happen. Then find the font. It's not going to happen because they're probably not going to want you to find font that's not there. Change the case, smart punctuation, probably not going to happen. Create outline, optical margin alignment. So you can go back here and make the alignment. And then you have insert special character, symbols, hyphen. This we're going to go and do next week. We're going to do our brochure. So we're going to look at that, because you can insert placeholder and all kind of stuff. And also you can do show hidden characters. So these are the stuff that we're going to go in and do next week. Place hidden character, and then show hidden characters and things like this, because we're going to go and create a brochure. And then we're going to go also and package the brochure. And then work with links next week and see the difference between links and non-links in Illustrator. And then what else do you have here? In the properties panel, you do have the character over here. You can align type. You can align stuff to the center. You can align stuff to the left, to the right, and we're going to look at that while we're working with the brochure. We're also going to go in and save character style and all kind of stuff like this. So we're going to start the class with the brochure, and then we're going to move on to the next one that's going to be super important, and it's going to go and work with masking in Illustrator. But in general, what I try to tell you about is the type area and all the stuff. You can see here all the way in the type area. You can also go in and center the type, and then go back here and decide how do you want to go in the type, and it's going to give you to the type option, which is really, really important when you work with it. Does that make sense? So this one is wrap around the text. It's not as amazing as in InDesign. InDesign does it really cool with a lot of version. This one does it one thing at a time, but it is something that you want to go and look at. Any questions about the stuff that we did today with type? I can't emphasize it enough how important is the typography section in real life when you use Illustrator and in the test, because they really pay attention to it. I know they do a lot of typography sometime in Photoshop, how you do the type. It's not as important as in Illustrator. Why? Brochures, flyers, icons, and all kind of stuff that you're going to do, you are going to do that with type. So do you guys have any questions? Anything that was not that clear? Was it clear? Was it okay? I don't want to start the brochure now, because if we just start it, it's going to be like we're going to have to. I'm going to show you the brochure. You want to make sure you bring week 5 with you. Everything is in there. And then you can see here you have a 3-fold brochure. I have a logo creation folder for you guys just to look at how creating a just simple logo. I also put in there a sample poster, and then this poster that I created, I basically created that only with type. So if you're going to go back here, this one was created just with type. I mean, few kind of like effect, and the rest is type, type, type. So you can see here different kind of type that we have here. Anything with type on a path, type on an area, touch type, and all this, that's in this kind of a poster. So you can see that everything is really done with the stuff that you see that we did today, but within a kind of a poster that we made. Okay? So I am going to finish the recording, and then I'm going to, one thing I didn't do, okay, before I finish the recording, you have stuff here. I never use it, and that's why I keep forgetting to do that. But let's say if I'm gonna go back here and just paste something, or it doesn't have it, and let's say I'm gonna say Illustrator, and then I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. So what you have over here, you can go all the way on top of the control, or all the way on the object, and then in the object you're gonna go back here, and then you are going to go into, where is it, envelope distort, and then you say make with warp, and that's what you have over here. This is an automatic one that you can go in and do that. So sometimes they will give you something like this, and they're gonna tell you change the vertical or the horizontal, and change all the stuff over here. And you can see you can make this ugly type that looks like word, but you can have that. The reason I always forget to show it, because I barely use one, because I like to make my warping alone on a curve, but sometimes they will tell you go in and do it. So basically the question we're going to be, make that, and they're going to ask you choose a lower arc and make the bend into 29, and when this one horizontal, and then this is vertical, click OK. That's gonna be it. So whenever you do that, I can go back here and I can go in and change it. This is the envelope over here, and this is the distortion, and basically it's still a typeface. So what does it mean? It was gonna be hard for me to click on it, but I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna call that, see, Illustrator is still there. I'm gonna do wow, and it's still there. So it's warping it and just leaving the type itself there. And if you create outline, that's it. Does that make sense? So we're gonna take a look a little bit at that, and we're gonna take a look at glyphs as well. So probably gonna take like half an hour or 45 minutes to finish the text version in Illustrator. Okay? So I'm gonna select all, I'm gonna close that, and I'm gonna go in